purchase something, and almost all the hands go down. And so you think whether it's a security or not, it's an asset of some kind. What's interesting is, I don't know what the proportion of evangelicals about crypto are wax poetic about it because they think of it as a unit of exchange that they can use when most people are not seeing it like that. I heard another smart person say, I guess Gary was making this similar point. Anytime something reaches a certain kind of scale of use and attractiveness, you got to pay attention to it. And crypto has reached that. And the question is, it's not unfair what Gary said. When you have new things like this, usually it makes sense for them to come within some regime of regulation and oversight, as opposed to existing alongside it. I think the frustration a lot of people have with the SEC at the moment is where everyone's waiting. What's it going to be? Because people want notice and people want to know if what they're doing is going to be challenged and put out of business or not. But I think a lot of the ways people have thought about crypto is just not the way crypto has evolved.
That Dumbledore guy, what was that, those shitty Harry Potter movies? Well, he gave me his magic wand here, Preet, so work with me on this one, okay? And he's bestowed me this power, and I'm throwing this at you. I'm going to give you the talent of Steve Van Zandt, and you can tour with Bruce Springsteen for a year, or I put you on the bench of the Supreme Court, but you got to pick one. Where are you going?
That's actually very easy. I'm going to the East Street Band. I'm going with Bruce.
My man, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, you are. You're going on tour with Bruce. Talk to me quickly about and it is infatuation with the great Bruce Springsteen.
I'm not alone. I love Bruce. First of all, I grew up in Jersey. Second of all, my dad, for those of you who know Springsteen and know his connection to two major places in New Jersey, Freehold, where he grew up, and then Asbury Park, where he played at the Stone Pony and other places. My dad was a pediatrician in Asbury Park for 50 years. There's Bruce everywhere, where I grew up in Monmouth County. I think he is the most durable and interesting and talented artist over time in this country of the last half century. And people can have different views of that. I don't know that there's anybody who over time has put out so much material, has brought people so much understanding of their own lives as Bruce. And then he's the greatest performer and has the most stamina of any person I've ever seen in concert. And I've been a number of times. I always paraphrase or cite to Jon Stewart when asked the question, why do you like Bruce? And he says, do you like joy? If you like joy, go see Springsteen in concert.
Darkness on the Edge of Town is one of the top 3 albums of all time. And your point about him being, he's brilliant. I mean, he's a genius, but he makes things so accessible. You're right. I mean, if I could pick one person to see in concert, and I'm being serious for a second, as much as I talk about the Allman Brothers and Skinner and all my Southern rock shit, it's absolutely Bruce Springsteen just for the experience. So I totally appreciate that.
The other thing to know about him, and I was reminded of this because I just read Stevie Van Zandt's book, that guy is so prolific. There was a point Stevie describes in the late 70s. He put out an album. How many songs were on an album back in the old days when people cared about albums? Like 10 songs, 11 songs? Bruce would write like 50 songs. I think there's some artists, the one-hit wonders, they can't write one good song. He would write like 50 songs and have to throw out 40 songs. Some of those songs, I think The Promise he wrote years and years ago, which is one of the great songs, I think, comes out later. I mean, it's a rare talent to both be able to sing and write and play and arrange, and then to do so in such a prolific way. And over decades, he was on the cover of, I think, both Time and Newsweek in 1975.
I think the Rolling Stone headline or the first line of the article was, I've seen the future of rock and roll and his name is Bruce Springsteen. And that was
correct.
Early 70s, I think. So you're spot on with that.
1975, that's 46 years ago. And 2 weeks ago, I saw him crush it on Broadway. Who else can you say that about?
Well, Preet, I share your love for the boss. I've seen him in concert probably 20, 25 times. I also saw him on Broadway a few years ago. I love that show, as you did here. And I can't wait to hear your interview on Stay Tuned with Stevie Van Zandt that I think dropped this week, too. So we could go on forever on this one. We hope you'll come back and join us on the tape. Thanks a lot, Preet.
Thanks once again to CME Group for sponsoring this episode of On the Tape. If you liked what you heard, make sure you hit follow and leave us a review. It helps people find our show, and we love hearing from you. And we also want to hear from you via email at onthetape@riskreversal.com any time of the day. Follow and connect with us on Twitter at OnTheTapePod, and we'll see you next time.
On the Tape is a Risk Reversal media production. This podcast is for informational purposes only. All opinions expressed by me, Dan Nathan, Guy Adami, Danny Moses, and any other participants are solely our opinions and should not be relied upon for specific investment decisions.